you know, let you know that ultimately we appreciate you as a community, your interest, your input, and your partnership with us, with the schools and the facilities, and all that we do. So Gary Pfister, who is our Director of Services, has been doing a tremendous job. He's very, very knowledgeable and has been an intricate part of the planning and the connecting and the dialogue that we're having with the state. This evening, in our series, we will have focused topics for each evening, and this evening's we're really focusing on the state funding, really a fuller explanation of that and a fuller understanding and an opportunity to take your questions about that so that we can help clarify. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Pfister.
Thanks, Dr. Cohn. Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad you're all here tonight. It is kind of lousy outside with the mist coming down. Tonight's topic isn't a fun topic, so to speak. It's more of an educational topic, trying to help everybody understand school funding as it relates to the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. So we're going to spend tonight talking about the OFCC and how that all works. Before I get into that, Dr. Kump mentioned we do have a series of engagement sessions scheduled. You can see them up there on the screen and their topics. All of them are in this room. They're all on a Tuesday night, and they all start at 6:30. Our next session after tonight is going to be the revealing of a conceptual floor plan that we've been working on, and then also what a student and a parent daily experience would be like in a renovated LT Ball with an addition on it. March 12th topic is going to be discussing the bond issue. Mr. Stevens, our treasurer, will be leading us through that session. A lot of good information coming on that. And then April 9th, that's still to be determined. We're going to gauge the feedback we get from these sessions and decide what information we need to continue getting out. The reason I do show that to you is as you go along tonight, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I'll try to answer them as we go. But please keep in mind that these topics are coming up. So if you have a question about a floor plan or maybe about the bond, I'll answer it as well as I can, but keep in mind that there's going to be a session devoted entirely to those. So, order of the evening, kind of our guide here. We're going to talk about our master's facilities plan. Then we're going to go into the OFCC and how it relates to us. You can see the topics there. And then we'll close with our roadmap forward. So last year, February, I think, was the first time we got together in this room for community engagement session. At that point in time, we were talking about the renovations at the middle school and here. We were talking about how we were going to pay for that and how that fit in with our master's facilities plan. We did 3 sessions last spring, February, March, and April. We followed that up in the summertime with a renovation plan that focused on the middle school. Mainly, we did do some infrastructure work here, but most of the work was focused over at the middle school. And then we came back in October, and we had another engagement session. This time, we were at the middle school, and that session focused on what we did at the middle school and over here. The reason I bring that up is because I want to kind of go back a little bit to February, March, April time frame. We discussed a lot about the renovations and how we were going to pay for them. And we said we were going to pay for those with our current permanent improvement fund, which we are doing. So we didn't come back, we didn't ask for any new taxes. We made all the changes over there and here, and we're paying for it with our current PI fund. I also said at that point in time, we still had to address our most pressing needs, which was Broadway and Evan-Coppic. And I said at that point in time, we would be coming back once we got through with the renos at the middle school and the LT Ball to discuss that. So that's where we're at tonight. So, our master facilities plan moving forward. We are looking at doing a renovation of this building and put an addition onto this building, which would house all new classrooms for K-5. In this building, current LT Ball we'll call it, you can see we're going to make an enlarged kitchen, going to extend the library and media center. We're going to move and add some related arts classrooms, so there are enough of those classrooms to cover all of our special area classes. We're going to add multiple handicap classrooms and preschool classrooms into this building. And then we're going to also have a centralized administrative office suite. We will show that to you in February at the February 19th session. We're not quite there with the conceptual floor plan yet, so we don't really want to roll it out when we know there's still going to be some changes made to it as we go forward. But we're comfortable when we come to February, we'll have a nice plan for you to see. In addition then, we are going to put an addition onto this building of 94,000 square feet. That will host new classrooms for all K-5 kids. So our students that are in Broadway, our students that are in Nevin, and then our students that are currently in this building as well. We'll have new classroom space for all of our K-5 classrooms throughout the community. We'll also add an additional gymnasium so that this facility will have 2 large gymnasiums, and we're going to add an additional stage. We know that at Broadway, especially at Broadway, they like to do the large group Christmas programs, spring programs, and we know this stage right here wouldn't accommodate 200 children comfortably. So we are going to add a stage into this addition as well, and you'll see that in February as well where that's going to go, but it'll be large enough that we can have a whole grade level program. The plan also consists of demolition and abatement of Nevin Coppic, the bus garage, and the tennis courts, which all sit out there. And then currently the master facilities plan shows us demoing Broadway. Now, last week, Dr. Kumpf started an engagement with the neighbors around the Broadway area, trying to come up with plans of how we can address that property. We know that is it's a subject that needs a lot of attention. We know there's been a school on that property since the 1800s. We know a lot of people are concerned about housing values if that goes away. So we want to engage with the neighborhoods around there. They started that process last week, and that will be ongoing. So while you see Broadway up there, that is in our current master plan, but that doesn't mean that is what will happen. It all is going to be related back to what that Broadway group comes up with. Plan also consists of a bus garage and a tennis court at the high school. So we're demoing the one that's out there, and we're going to move them up to the high school. And I'll show you the reason for that here in a second. One thing to keep in mind as we work with OFCC, they require us to put together a master plan for their purposes, for the state's purposes. They come in, they assess all of our facilities, we sit down with them and work to put together a plan. Many of you, if you were here in previous engagements, you know my feelings about OFCC have not always been the most positive. Part of that is because part of their issues are, that I see with them, is they mandate square footage. And one of the issues we ran in 3 years ago when we were looking to do a K-8 facility, the week before the board was going to approve it, they came back and said, we're going to co-fund 7th and 8th grade for you. Which meant that any square footage we were going to build for 7th and 8th grade, we had to pay for ourselves. They feel our high school is big enough for our 7th and 8th graders. So we've got to play the game a little bit with the state. We have to put together a master's facilities plan that gets submitted to OFCC. And currently that plan shows that we would have a pre-K 6 facility and we would have a 7-12 facility. This plan is leveraging that square footage by building the square footage that is given to us for our 6th graders, putting that square footage into our addition. The reason we feel we can do that is the money we put into the middle school this summer. New curtain walls, AC throughout the building, heat throughout the building, new electric throughout the building. We're comfortable that that middle school is going to last another 30 years minimum. So our master plan that we submitted to the state shows pre-K 6, 7, 12. One thing to keep in mind on those master plans is there is no timeline. There is no timeline on a state master plan. In our discussions with our master planner from the OFCC, we've gone over this and over this and over this. We do not have to do everything on that master plan. We can do what we're going to do here, and we can be done. Which right now is kind of our plan, and you'll see that as we move forward in the next 4 months. So, as I talked about getting rid of Nevin Kopic, demoing Nevin Kopic, tennis courts, and bus garage, you can see down here below, those red dashes are the footprint of those facilities. Up above here now, on the right is current middle school. The blue is current LT Ball. The red is the addition that we are looking to put on to this facility. So current LT Ball blue, you can see the stage on the left-hand side. That will go on the back side of this gym. If you go out on the playground, you'll notice there's it's kind of walled in. It kind of will fit right into that section. And then all the red over here, there's going to be a second gym right where that two-story addition wording is. It's a two-story building, K12 on the first floor, 3, 4, 5 on the second floor.
How many classrooms is that?
We are planning for 9 classrooms per grade level. It kind of fits, right now most of our grade levels are 8 classrooms. So we know every now and then we have bubble classes that go through. Let me go back to where I was, sorry about that. We have bubble classes that go through, so some grade levels have 9 right now. Part of the process with OFCC is we do enrollment projections, and they're expecting our enrollment to increase in the next 10 years. So we want to make sure that we do have enough classroom space when we do grow. We don't want to be in a situation like Bethel currently is, where they built, all of a sudden they've got hammered with new enrollments that don't have enough room. So by removing those footprints on the bottom, that allows us to have a better traffic flow on the site so we can get kids in and out, buses in and out, parents in and out. We're bringing in the 400 students from Broadway, so this facility will hold about 1,200 kids. So we got to make sure that we can get everybody in safely, out safely, efficiently, so that we also aren't tying up Hyatt Street down to Dairy Queen. We have currently contracted with the Kleinger's Group, and we're doing a traffic study out on Hyatt Street right now for them to make some suggestions to us of how to best handle this traffic flow. So that's the overall over-above site picture of what we're going to be doing. Again, in February, we will take that blue and that red, and we will show you what it's going to look like on the inside. Can I answer any questions on this before I move on? Yes, ma'am.
With those projected classrooms, how does that square footage compare to what Nevin and Broadway have right now?
Sure. Nevin and Broadway have anywhere from 820 to 880 square foot per classroom. The new classrooms will be 810 square feet per classroom. These classrooms in this building are anywhere from 690 to 720. So they'll see an increase here. The other classrooms from Broadway and Nevin will be very similar in size. The kindergarten classrooms will be 1,080 square feet. And our current kindergarten classrooms are 880 square feet. So about 200 square feet additional for kindergarten.
And then the preschool rooms are going to be...
The preschool rooms, you see where it says pre-K up there? Which is there's an area that used to be the shop back here that we're going to convert into classrooms for the pre-K. They'll have their own entrance right back there as well, so they'll be able to get in and out without them getting lost in the shuffle of our K-5 kids. Thank you.
And those 2 playground areas that you were showing, those are the 2 playground areas for the whole school?
There's money in our budget for a playground. So currently the playground is, and Mike, where's Mike Vagan is at? You can address that a little bit better right now.
Right where that stage is, back behind there, there's an area for a basketball court. There's some spinny things and monkey bars, and that whole field out there is open right now. But I know that what we're looking at here is a smaller playground for the younger kids, and that, Gary, if you could point to that.
I see that.
Okay.
Yep, right up there by the 1-3.
Just to kind of keep the younger ones a little bit further away from maybe the older kids, so they don't get ran over.
Yeah.
So there's definitely money in the budget for playground. We're comfortable with the space we have on this site for playground. We've not nailed down what's going to be in them, where they're going to actually be. Okay? Okay, OFCC. A little history on the OFCC. Current iteration of OFCC was established in 2012. They are responsible for all capital projects of all state agencies, universities, community colleges, and all K-12 schools throughout Ohio. OFCC originally started as the OSFC, Ohio School Facilities Construction Program. That was established in 1997. That was originally funded with the tobacco settlement lawsuit from way back then. They took all those dollars, put them into that program, and helped to fund schools. Their process at that point in time is they went from the schools that were considered the lowest wealth schools. They made a list from lowest wealth to highest wealth, and they started with those schools. 2012, they dissolved the OSFC, went to OFCC, and incorporated all those other agencies into them. Currently, funding for OFCC is provided by the state legislature every biennium. Typically, it's about $250 million that they put into that program. So it has been around since 1997. They are nowhere near finished with all the schools that need their help. So I can't see this program going away. They also come up with what's called the local share, state share partnership. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go into it, but that is basically determining how much the local community should pay for and how much the state is going to kick in. As I said, back in 97, they went with the low wealth districts. A lot of those schools were getting 90 to 95% of their facilities covered by the state. And they've kind of worked their way down to where we're at right now, which we'll get to in a second. So the OFCC has the school side. The programs that they have for schools is a facilities assessment program, the classroom facilities assistance program, which we call CFAP, the Expedited Local Partnership Program, which is ELP, which is what we're going into here over the next few months. And they also have this Alternative Facilities Assistance Program. I have a slide for each of these that we can walk through. So the assessment program, basically the OFCC sends their architects into our district, and they walk every square inch of our schools, writing an assessment report on the condition of our schools and what our schools would need to come up to the Ohio School Design Manual standards. We went through this process back in 2015, where they came in. The name of the architectural firm was Leggett and King Scott. One of their books is right there. I have two of those books that spell out everything we need for our buildings. So they came out, they did that. They also give us the enrollment projections, which I talked about a little bit ago. And then they help us develop a master plan with an estimated project cost. So as I said, we utilized this program in the spring of 2015 where they came out and walked these buildings. The most recent update in the spring of 18 was they took the newest cost set of what they think it would cost to bring our buildings up to their code. So we have more accurate pricing. It's actually a good program. This part of OFCC, I've never had a problem with this part because it gives us a lot of good information of what we need to do to our buildings if we want to keep them. Their next program, CFAP, Classroom Facilities Assistance Program. This is where my frustrations have always come in with OFCC. The third bullet point, eligibility and waiting game. With CFAP, I've been in this position I'm in right now 9 years, so since 2010. We would meet with the OFCC once a year. They'd come in and they'd say, hey, we think you're 2 years away from getting our money. We'd get excited, we'd start planning, we'd be ready to go. We'd meet with them the next year. Hey, we think you're 2 years away. Every single year, we got the same story. The bad part of that is that we were too close to this program, the Classroom Facilities Assistance Program, that we were not eligible for this program. So we were always in limbo. Always in limbo with them. We could never get past the 2 years. You're 2 years out. You're 2 years out. Well, what else can we do? Well, nothing. You're stuck. We can't put you in ELP because you're too close to getting CFAP money. So finally, this year, kind of good and bad, I guess, they told us, well, you're no longer 2 years out. We think you're further out than 2 years, which allowed us then to get into the ELP program. So the main thing with CFAP is you had to wait for your number to come up before you could go forward with your construction project. And with CFAP, their co-funding of the program starts right at the beginning. So if we're building a $100 school, they're going to come in and pay their share, their $30 right off the bat, so we don't have to pass a bond issue for the full size. So that is a benefit of CFAP. The ELP program is a little bit different. So we're going to spend some time the next 5, 6, 7, 8 slides talking about what is ELP, because it is slightly different and it's got a little bit, few tweaks in it that CFAP doesn't. And realistically, we could probably spend 2 nights on this and not get through it all. So if you have questions, I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. We have some other experts in the audience that might be able to join in as well and help if need be. So what is ELP? It's available to districts not yet eligible for CFAP in the next 3 years. So that was us. Finally in July, they told us that. It also provides the opportunity to move forward with portions of our project now rather than waiting for our CFAP number to come up. Bullet point 3. Since we're not eligible for CFAP dollars yet, we have to locally fund the project. So we have to pass a bond issue that funds our entire building project. And then when our number comes up through CFAP, we get our money or our credit back, depending on how we're going to use it. So with CFAP, they're with you from the get-go co-funding, and you don't have to pass such a large bond issue because their money is there. With ELP, we've got to pass a bond issue, locally fund the project up front. Then when our number comes up for CFAP, they come back to us and write us a check or give us our credit or however that's going to work. Right now, they're projecting anywhere from 3 to 7 years before our number will come up in CFAP. There's a lot of variables into that. There's a list that ranks every school district in your order. And we're like, I think we're in the low 40s where we would be funded. But it's not exactly accurate because what happens is that school districts that in previous years went for their bond issue and failed, they were considered a LAP district. If all of a sudden they now pass their bond issue, they jump in front of us. So we really don't know from year to year where we actually are on that list. It all depends on how many schools pass their bond issue and then jump in front of us, thus keep moving us down. That is why we have moved from being 2 years close to CFAP to, well, you're at least 3 years away now. Same thing, OFCC performs the assessment of our facilities and assists with our K-12 facility master plans we've already talked about. As I said, funding process. CFAP at the beginning, ELP at the end. The nice thing that we did learn this year, so in the 9 years I've been doing this, our state share, local share index has bounced anywhere from about 24% to 31%. That number changes every year until you lock in your number. So every September we get a notice from them saying where we were with our state share, local share percentage. Well, they came to us in July, told us we were going to get ELP, or we were eligible for ELP. September then they notified us of what our state share was. Our state share at that time was 35%. So, my reservations of going with OFCC, the frustrations with their CFAP games they played with us, kind of took a back seat when we saw the 35% number. 35% is a number that you can't scoff at. That's a significant amount of money that will help us fund this project. Yes, Mr. Berger.
This we promise you, you know, if you give me a hamburger day, I'll pay you Tuesday. Is this in writing, is what they're giving you? Or
It is.
verbal?
No, it is in writing. The school board passed a resolution back in December going with this. We are on the books. It is 35%. It is locked in.
For the years until next September?
No.
Oh, okay.
We are locked in. So it's kind of a gamble. You know, we could have maybe not locked in and waited a year, but with it being 35%, which is 4% higher than anything we've ever seen, in my opinion, the chances are that number is going to go back down. So we felt more comfortable locking in at 35% now and moving forward with them.
To go pass it in May.
Right.
Keep that number.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And that number will stay there if we don't pass in May. If we pass in November, it's still 35%. If we pass in November 3 years from now, it's still 35%. And the last program, this is a new program, AFAP. It's kind of an odd program. When we first heard about it, last year we thought, oh, this might be something nice. We can get some money and then kind of do our own thing. But as we learned more about it, basically what it is, OFCC is looking at their districts that are further down the list and are further out from getting their money. And they found this as a way to try to help them do some of their projects. So they're going to offer to these districts either $1 million or 10% of their state share of what the district would have received had we participated in CFAP. We are looking at receiving from CFAP money over $10 million. So the $1 million to us, yeah, I don't know. You know, you can get it and you can go. At least we thought you could get it and go. What we learned this week is that if you're interested in AFAP, you can only get it when your CFAP number comes up. So to me, that makes no sense. If your CFAP number is up, why would I take the $1 million?
Why wouldn't you take your CFAP number?
So there's some issues with that program. I'm not sure who's using that program, unless they really have smaller projects. But that's one we looked at initially, thought it had some potential, learned more about it, and we thought, nah, let's move on. So, a little bit more information on ELP. With kind of a timeline that we put together here so you can see how this all ties together. We'll have a slide for each one of these bubbles. So, July 31st, our reps from OFCC came in and notified us that we are now eligible for ELP, as we talked about here briefly. August 8th, the board actually passed a resolution committing to ELP at that point in time. September 19th, we were notified by the OFCC that our state share percentage is now 35%, as I've talked about. And now this month, January 24th, the OFCC will act on our, district facilities plan under ELP. So that's the Ohio Facilities Commission. They get together, our planner presents our program to them, and then they give it the go-ahead, and then we're off and running. So that's kind of the first bubble in the timeline for us and our eligibility for ELP. Next bubble, community passes the bond levy. So last Friday, our Board of Education took the first step in putting a bond issue on the ballot, May 7th. The bond issue is for an amount of $35,750,000. It is a millage of 5.4 mils. And again, Mr. Stevens will discuss that at our March community engagement session. We'll have a lot more information for you in March, so it gives you a better idea to understand that and ask more questions on that. But again, it's $35,750,000, 5.4 mils. This will renovate portions of LT Ball, as we were talking about. It's going to build our K-5 classroom additions that we talked about. It's going to move our bus garage and tennis court. So I told you we were going to move them. They are going to be moved to the high school. The bus garage will sit on the property we purchased 3 or 4 years ago that backs up to our practice fields there, Don Davis Way, to our practice fields. We own 8 acres there. The plan is to build a bus garage on that site, taking up probably about 3 of those acres. And then the tennis courts will either end up on that same property, or potentially Mr. Faust and Mr. Veerhoff from the high school are looking at putting the tennis courts on one of the current soccer practice fields. So we have 2 soccer practice fields there currently and 2 football fields there currently. Since the turf went in at the stadium last year, usually either the boys or the girls, when it's their turn to practice, usually one of them is at the stadium practicing, so we're typically only using one of our practice fields. So we're considering moving the tennis courts to one of those sites. This project will also pay to demolish and abate Nevin Coppic, and then also pays to demolish and abate Broadway Elementary and the maintenance garage there. Again, pending what the Broadway site group comes up with. In our master plan submitted to the state, we are showing that these facilities are being demolished. Please keep in mind that the 35% co-funding we get also goes towards the demolishing and the abating of our school facilities. So Nevin Coppic, Broadway, Tipp Central, the state will co-fund those programs to remove those facilities at the same 35% level. So from a budgeting standpoint, it really makes a lot of sense to take their help to help us get rid of those facilities. They do not co-fund the demolishing of the bus garage. They do not co-fund the tennis courts or the moving of the tennis courts. They only will co-fund the school sites. And we have a slide coming up that shows you what is co-fundable and what's not. Any questions on this slide? Okay. The third bubble. Construction of the PK5 addition and the Reno project. We're anticipating with the May bond passage that design work begins in earnest after the bond passes in May. Right now, when you come to our February meeting, we'll show you some conceptual drawings of what we believe this is all going to look like, but there's been no actual designing done. We've not contracted for that at this point in time. We want to wait till our bond issue passes before we start spending money on those designs. So that design work begins. First bullet point. All the students will remain in Nevin, Broadway, and LT throughout the entire building process. So we are not going to set up a trailer court school. We're not going to move students out of their classrooms into the trailers to construct. 3 years ago, when we tried to pass the issue for the Broadway project, that included moving all of our second and third graders into trailers. Those trailers were going to be parked out here. We had to do that at that time to clear Broadway to build a school on that site. Couldn't build the school on the site when there was a school already there. That is a cost of about $1 million, $1.5 million in today's dollars, that we don't have to put into this project now. We can keep the kids in Nevin, we can keep the kids in Broadway, we can keep the kids in this building as we're constructing. Renovations of this building will be done throughout the summer. So we have 2 summers of work that the addition will be constructed. So the first summer, we'll do some targeted infrastructure, some heating, some electrical, some of those things that doesn't disrupt the classroom spaces and the office spaces. The second summer is when this building, basically we're going to move kitchen from one side of the building to the other, office gets moved, art rooms get added. So some of that other work, which will take longer, will be that second summertime. We've talked with Dr. Kumpf a little bit so far about school calendar for those years, and we'll be looking at those to make sure we have as long of a summer as possible to get that work done. The goal is, the bottom bullet point there, if the bond issue passes in May, and we can get started with the design right away, we can be out to bid on the site work by late fall. The goal is to be in the new addition in the fall of 2021. That is assuming that everything goes perfect, maybe, timing-wise. It is a fast-track schedule. I know in talking to Mike Richley, I think I gave him heartburn when I told him we needed to be in 2 years. We're putting a lot of money into Broadway. We're putting a lot of money into Nevin. As we've talked about in previous engagement sessions, I lay awake a lot of nights wondering what's going to go wrong at those buildings. They've served us very well over the year. Original Broadway is approaching 70 years old. A lot of the infrastructure in it is 70 years old. We've got galvanized water lines. We don't have water shutoffs at our toilets. We don't have water shutoffs at our sinks. We have steam lines underneath the maintenance garage at Broadway that are 70 years old, that are covered with asbestos, that we can't find contractors to go down there and work on them. And I have a hard time telling my maintenance crew, hey, suit up and go down. You fix that. I wouldn't do it. So if I'm not going to do it, I have a hard time telling somebody else to do it. Not to mention I'm extremely claustrophobic and it's kind of tight down there. So,
Gary, what does OFCC think about putting good money into Broadway and Coppet? Do they have a...
That's a great question. Thank you. So OFCC has a guideline that says if it costs more than 2/3 of the cost to build a new building, they're not going to give you money to renovate your buildings. So Broadway and Nevin Coppock are both over 95% renovate to replace ratio. So we're not going to get any money from the OFCC if we decide as a community that we want to stay in those buildings. We won't get a nickel from them. We're on our own at that point in time. They just think it's worth it. They're going to put state dollars in it. They want to make sure it's going into a facility that's going to last. This building, after we put the money into it this past summer, we put in a new chiller, we put in new boilers, we put in domestic hot water, we put in new doors, we replaced the lighting in the gymnasium. This building's renovate to replace ratio is 63%. So it's below the 2/3. We had no issue. They have no issue with us being able to renovate this and add on. They will co-fund all of this. I do have a couple sheets that are going to be posted on our website here in the next week or so. Business cost analysis of both what it would cost to renovate Broadway, what it would cost to renovate Nevin Coppock. And again, the thing to keep in mind is that those are our dollars. Every single dollar that goes into those buildings are our dollars. There's no FCC dollars coming in to do that. Off the top of my head, that's about $26 million to get those two buildings up to design manual standards. And you're still stuck, I don't mean you're stuck is the wrong word. We still have 70, 65-year-old buildings at that point in time. And we'd have to pass a bond issue to do it. We were able to do the middle school, we were able to do this building without passing a bond issue. We reallocated our permanent improvement money, and we were able to do that without asking for more money. We would not be able to do that for Broadway and Nevin. Okay. Thank you. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions on that?
I guess I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
You talked about demolishing the Broadway schools and so forth, but there are some issues with the property owners around it. What do they see as an alternative?
That's
They keep the school.
right. That's a good question, and Dr. Kump just started the first engagement with them last week. They had some good ideas come out. The thing to keep in mind is we're limited to how we can dispose of the property. ORC spells out how we can get rid of it. And so we shared that with the Broadway neighbors, so they understand that as well. But we're trying to engage with them. We're trying to engage with the city to come up with the best plan for that property. Hey, Greta, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
It's a great question. And, you know, there is a very strong emotional attachment to the Broadway site and the Broadway school because historically it has been a school. I think in the end, we actually had a number of exit slips and also breakout groups that reported. Probably the overarching theme is that they definitely want something that does not become an eyesore and deplete, you know, the community and a viewing for them. And certainly we support that, the city supports that, and we just need to get together and really talk about what are potential uses. We did gather some information about the kinds of things that they would be very pleased to see there on that side. So we're going to continue to explore that, and then once again we have to think about, you know, the whole thing about the aspect of cost and the legal ramifications and liability of certain things, and also if someone would purchase it, their level of commitment to follow through with what they say they're going to do with the property as well.
So I guess that was kind of follow up. Would the school retain ownership of it, or would they turn it over to the city or sell it?
Yeah, so all that's being explored. Yes, absolutely.
That's something to be determined. I know from my standpoint as facilities director, if we maintain that property, it costs us money to maintain it.
Right.
So I would determine the best way to handle that.
Who makes that final decision?
The Board of Education.
I guess ultimately, as a taxpayer, my concern would be is if we have state money helping to tear down that school, I don't want to lose that assistance
Sure.
because somebody has an emotional attachment to a school.
Yep, I hear you.
That's frustrating to me.
Sure. Yep.
As a
Agreed.
community
We just want to
member.
make sure we're being sensitive to our entire community, to small community, a lot of attachment to a lot of areas in this community. We just want to make sure that we're hearing everybody out and doing the right thing.
Yeah, I guess, I think it should come down to what our best dollars are
Sure.
spent.
I don't disagree with you. Thank you.
I would say, I was at the meeting, I live on Broadway, and that was not the overall theme at all that evening. Everybody in that neighborhood knows it's time to move on from that school. So I think it's more, the focus wasn't really on, we don't want the school to tear down unless we get what we want afterwards. We know that, that wasn't really the theme at all. Everybody really understands that it's just time. So if that does give you a little bit of comfort, I mean, I didn't feel like anybody at that meeting that night felt like, we're going to hold it hostage per se.
Sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it was a very productive time.
Yeah, I was going to say, my fear is just that you go through some of these very small towns and you see this decrepit old school building that has been sold. The school has sold it to a person or an individual, and now somebody's living out of a school building or turned it into 15 apartments, and I'm like, all because it's a school that nobody wanted to tear down, and that's what terrifies me.
I don't think anybody wants that.
No, I would hope
The
not.
owners of the school represented for over a century.
Yes, yes. Thank you both for your comments. Very good. Thank you. Okay, we got some more slides. I'm trying to keep this to an hour. I've been refreshed with water, so maybe I can keep going here a little bit. So our ELP number, as we said, we anticipate approximately 3 to 7 years before our number comes up from the OFCC. At that point in time, one of the items with the OFCC in using their money is you play by their rules. Obviously, they're put money into it. They're going to have their rules that you got to play by. So, our number comes up. We receive 35% of the cost of the co-fundable items of the project. And we have a list that we'll show you here in a second. What is co-funded and what's not co-funded, but it's 35%. It's approximately $10 million. The thing to keep in mind is when one of the first slides showed that we were renovating about 60% of this building. The state wants to make sure that this building is going to last as long as that addition. I have no problem with that. I think that's a great plan. But that means when we get our money, the first thing we have to do is we have to come back into this building and do the other 40%. So we're going to put about another, of that $10 million that is co-funded to us, about $5 million of that is going to have to continue to go back into this school. And it's not just one item, it's not two items, it's not, it's just going to be this part of the building. The 60% we're doing it's electrical, it's duct work, it's life safety, so your sprinkler system. A lot of stuff we're going to do in 60% of the building, unless it makes more sense to do it in 100% of the building. But what areas we don't finish, we've got to come back and do that. We don't pay a nickel for it at that point in time. We get a credit from the OFCC, they fund that. So we take about the first $5 million of that $10 million we're getting, and we put it into this building, bringing it up to their design manual standards. Again, not a bad thing. We're building an addition that we hope is going to last 75 years.
Right.
We want this to last just as long. So I have no problem with that. The second part of that then is we still have about $5 million left over. Since we have a master plan that's been submitted to the state, we have to look at the rest of our master plan and determine should we do anything or what needs to happen with that master plan. So the rest of our master plan focuses on the high school. The good thing to understand or to know with this is that if the cost to renovate a building is less than a third of what it would be to rebuild it, so 33%, if 33% of your renovate to replace ratio, if your cost number is below that 33%, you don't have to do anything to that building. So our high school building is 14 years old. Its renovate to replace ratio, according to the state, right now is 6%. So as long as when we get our money, the renovate to replace ratio at the high school is below 33%, we can look at our list of what the state says need to happen there. We can go in and evaluate as a district, and we can say, you know what? Yeah, I don't think so. We're kind of happy with where we're at. Or we could say, hey, we see that, yeah, this might need to be addressed. So we, as a school district, as a school board, have the option then to look at our list at the high school and either A, determine we're not going to do anything because we're comfortable that renovate to replace ratio is below 33%, or B, there might be something that needs to get done and we have that credit from the state to go in and do it. Again, no more money out of our pocket. It's money from the state to go in and do it. Then whatever money is left over, the plan of our school board, of Dr. Kumpf, of Mr. Stevens, is to take that money, refinance our bond issue, and either A, cut years off the amount of life on that bond, or lower the amount of millage that is being collected. Did I say that correctly? You said that correctly. Okay. So, our plan is, once we've brought this up, $5 million, once we looked at the high school and determined either we're going to do whatever we're going to do there, whatever money is left of that $5 million, we will refinance basically that bond issue, and that money will go on that bond issue, either A, lowering the years of the bond issue, or lowering the amount of millage we are collecting.
Or both.
Or both. That's a subject that I don't understand real well, so March will be a good one.
I'll just add, the high school was done, that when the high school bond was passed, it was passed for 27 years. The board has refinanced the loan twice on that issue, and we did reduce the years down to 24 total. And not only that, we reduced the millage on it. So what was originally passed, we're not collecting that much anymore. So that's what we've been able to do using lower interest rates and shortening the term. So we'll be done with that debt earlier than what we anticipated.
Which will be part of the March discussion.
Yep.
So please come back in March to hear that whole discussion. The nice thing to know is when the district refinanced the high school, we didn't have a chunk of money to put on it. We had lower interest rates at that point in time, which allowed us to do it. Hopefully the interest rates don't continue skyrocketing over the next 5-7 years and they do start coming down. But we're also going to have a chunk of up to $5 million to refinance that bond issue as well. Okay? That bond issue is going to be for 27 years as well initially. I'm not sure if I said that before, but it is a 27-year bond issue. Okay, let's keep going. So, eligible uses for co-funding dollars. You can see the list there. We have two columns. The one on the right is not co-fundable. The one on the left is co-fundable. Kind of straightforward. Kind of hits all the points there of what is, what isn't. The second bullet from the bottom, on the left-hand side, multi-purpose fields. That's not a stadium. That's not a baseball field. Those are basically practice fields where multiple teams, multiple community members could use. They will co-fund the grading and the seating of those fields. Okay, so it's not stadium. It's none of that. It is basically playground area, practice fields. On the right, the top bullet, board office. We have heard a lot, well, let's build enough square footage to put the board office over here. Okay. Board office is about 5,500 square feet. Cost to build right now is about $266 a square foot. Mr. Stevens, what's that amount?
You said 5,500?
Yep.
500 times.
1.5 million pounds.
1.5 million to add enough square footage to put the board office over here. Our appraised value of that property is less than $800,000. Okay, so we're going to pay 1.5 million to bring board office over here and then try to sell that property. We're losing.
Yeah, that's simple math.
All it costs us to operate our board office is our utility bills each month. We pay an electric bill, we pay a water bill. That's all we pay. The building's paid for itself. We pay less than $7,000 a year to operate that board office. So, in my opinion, it kind of doesn't make any sense to add 5,500 more square feet when they're not going to help us build it. We've got a facility right now that is serving our needs, that is paid for, and it's a minimal cost to operate it. Other non-eligible uses, bus compounds, I told you, does not get co-funded. Maintenance garage does not get co-funded. Community service type programs are not co-fundable. The computers we put in the classroom, believe it or not, are not co-fundable. Kind of crazy. Equipment or tool sheds, auditoriums, natatoriums, not co-fundable. The next item, which I find really odd, kitchen equipment. It's not co-fundable.
That one is upsetting.
That just kind of really blows me away. They'll co-fund the space that you got to develop for it, but you're on your own for your kitchen equipment. So when we take and redesign the kitchen for 1,200 kids, right now our kitchen's right there. Used to be a satellite kitchen. When this building first started, they'd cook the lunches over there, they'd bus them over here, and then they'd serve them. Many years before I got here, they took and redesigned that kitchen a little bit. That's a very tiny kitchen, it's like 1,100 square feet. It's really not big enough for the 400 kids we have in here. So we're going to take and almost quadruple the size of that kitchen on this side of the building. Quadrupling the size of that kitchen is a lot of equipment we got to put in to serve. We're on our own to pay for that. That is what's called a locally funded initiative. They don't co-fund it, we've got to pay for it. Again, the bottom one, sports stadiums. You know, we've been trying to use private funds to continue on down at City Park. People said, well, why don't you get this, put this on your levy with it as well, let the state help you pay for it. The state does not pay for those. So none of this bond issue that we're doing right now will be towards any sports facility. It's all for our educational and our curricular needs. Oops, I went the wrong way. So, we're towards the end of this. We're about 7:30 almost. Again, reminder, February 19th is the next one. Student and parent daily experience and the unveiling to the community of the conceptual site plan. March 12th, bond issue. April 9th, to be determined. Mr. Sagona's been doing a great job trying to get all this information out on our website. We do have a link. Is that in our product? Okay. I got ahead of myself. Let me back up. Tentative project schedule. We talked about this a little bit. Bond issue passes in May. Design work begins in May. Site construction early spring of 20. Summer 21 we move in. Fall of 21 finish the abatement and demo. Late 2021 we finish all the site work. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you when we move in the fall of 21 that everything's going to be perfect and ready to go. The first 6 months are going to be hellacious. Site work won't be completed. The buildings won't be all down. So those first 6 months are going to be rough. But long term, it's all going to be good. So we just got to keep the long term picture in mind.
Yep.
So to stay updated, we have engagements coming up. Our website, building.tippcityschools.com. As I said, Mr. Sagona has done a great job trying to keep information out there so that any questions you may have, you can go there and you'll probably be able to find the answer you're looking for. We have an email set up, building@tippcityschools.com. Any questions you have, hit that email and one of us will respond to it. We'll get answers back to you as quickly as you can. Phone number at the board office is right there. call, you can ask for myself, you can ask for Dr. Kumpf, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Sagona. We will talk with you. We'd love to talk to you and get the proper information out. We want to make sure that the facts are out there. We all know social media can get kind of nutty. And sometimes people put stuff up there thinking they know the answers. And then a lot of people believe what they read there without checking. If you see something out there that you question or you're not sure about, call. We would love to sit down with anybody, whether it's one person, whether it's 10, whether it's a church group, whether it's the Rotary, whatever, we will come and talk. As this young lady said, it's time. It is time. This young lady said that as well too, many times. It is time for our community to do something about our facilities. We've been talking about them for years. This isn't a new issue. This isn't a group of us saying, oh, let's build a school. That's not what we're about. We're taxpayers as well. I don't want my taxes going up unless they have to go up. We need at this point in time to address our facility needs for our K3, our K5 students. These buildings have served us well, but it's time as a community to come together and to get this done. So please stay informed, stay engaged. We will be out and about at service meetings providing information. We will be meeting at coffee shops periodically. We'll get those posted so you can come sit down with us, ask any questions you have. Ask. Help us get the word out. We need as many ambassadors as possible to get the word out. Okay, 7:29. I did it, Jim.
You have 1 minute. You're going to keep talking for a minute.
Question. What didn't we cover that you wanted to know when you came into the building tonight?
I guess it's a follow-up of what you just mentioned, but is there really, I guess essentially this is a campaign, trying to convince the community. I know this is a different plan from the last bond issue. It's a totally different site. It seemed like a lot of people had issues with it just being a K-3 building. At least you're getting more bang for your buck. But I guess, is there a committee or anybody that's really reaching out to other parts of the community? If it's
Sure.
the senior center, maybe like, the library holding like town halls, just something
Sure.
where we're kind of
Sure.
infiltrating.
What we are doing is an information campaign. Okay, we're not a levy campaign. We are trying to get our information out there, sharing the needs. There will be a levy campaign. Dr. Kumpf is working with a potential coach or a potential chair of this that we will be engaging with, and they'll be getting out and doing what levy campaigns do. We feel so strongly about this that we feel that the information message should be the lead in all of this. And so that's why we want to get that message out of why we think this needs to happen.
But we're looking for volunteers for the campaign committee, so.
We forgot to tell you, that's why we got your information. It was kind of a trick.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes,
I have a
Abby.
question about how does this fit in, and have you looked at the zoning codes and retention ponds and landscaping, and is that part of your 35 million, or have you
It is.
addressed that?
It is.
Yeah.
I've actually had several conversations with Mr. Spring already. I've not shown him a conceptual site plan because we're not ready to yet, but I've told him as soon as it's ready, I'm coming over. We're going to sit down, we're going to go through it. He's going to go through anything that he sees as potential roadblocks and make sure they're being addressed up front.
Time to go. Thunderstorm.
I'm not sure what that is, so.
Time to go. Thunderstorm. The devil everywhere.
How many acres at Broadway?
The Broadway site is a little over 6 acres. 6.04.
And you are limited to who you can sell it to, correct? Is that correct?
Dave, do you want to address how we can, the question was, we're limited to who we can sell the property to.
Well, the Ohio Revised Code, which we refer to as ORC, says that the school district, we have to offer it to any community schools that are in the area.
Right.
Good news for us, there are no community schools in Tipp.
Currently.
So then we have the option of going to a public auction.
I think that's the best way.
And, the board can accept bids. The board can also reject bids. If everything is rejected, then the board can move to private sale. But in the end, the board has to accept this, the sale. So final decision, as you had asked earlier, rests with the Board of Education.
Okay.
So there's definitely going to be a lot of discussion and making sure if it does sell, it goes to who we feel is the right person, the right entity, business, city government, whatever.
Whatever.
Yes, Joel?
I just want to make a comment following up on Abby's
Yes.
question. In addition to the Broadway group, there's also a Good Neighbor group that will be meeting here next Tuesday.
Thank you.
For all the neighbors in the perimeter of this school property who want to come and give some input, be heard on what the interest of the homeowners are in the neighborhood that surround this school. So whatever concerns they might have, and it's another way to find out more information.
Thank you. I
So if
totally
know-
missed that
If you
one.
live in that area and you want to come, or if you know someone
even
who
if you
might
don't.
be in that area, please come.
Okay. That's next Tuesday night?
Right.
6:30, right here.
It's right here, and it's open to the community.
Yeah, right.
Even if you're a parent that's going to drop off at this building, you have a question or a suggestion.
Right. We want to be good
Come to the
stewards
meeting.
to the neighbors who live here.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
I don't really have a question, but as a mom of a kindergartner, we are super excited about this heading on. And I know my son is super excited that he might have a new school. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to spend the money, I don't want to do this, I want to do. The thing is, you got to remember these tiny little people are our future of our community. Our teachers, our principals work really hard in these buildings, especially when it's 102 degrees in a classroom. When your child's coming home just sweating to death. That's really, I mean, it's hard for them to learn, it's hard for a teacher to teach. I know I work for preschool, and so we talk about this, and their children who are been from kindergarten, now that some of them are in high school, they're even super excited that these kids are going to get a new school, technology, STEM, bigger classrooms so they can do stuff with. So, I mean, it might be a couple bucks here and there, but it's going to be a huge difference for these tiny little kids.
Great,
They're our
thank you.
future.
Thank you, very good. Anything else before we close? Greta, I'll let you close it.
Well, I appreciate the questions. I appreciate Mr. Pfister. Let's give him a round of applause. Very nice job. It's not an easy topic, and sometimes someone will ask almost in passing, and it's hard because it's not a two-liner. The state funding, OFCC, as well as the ELP plan. But we do feel we have made the right choice here. It has been a thoughtful choice, a lot of dialogue, a lot of connecting, and a lot of, well, I would say connecting the dots about what works best for Tipp. We do feel like this is the most financial responsible plan that we could come up with about saving the things that are very much worth saving, have a lot of life in them, and then providing the additional space that will give that longevity by combining the two. So thank you all for coming this evening. We hope to see you in our series of meetings, and then as we have our other meetings that are sites, whether it's the Good Neighbor, the Hyatt Good Neighbor, or the Broadway piece, or whether it's our coffees. Feel welcome. We would love to see you return. So thank you very much, and safe travels home.
Real quickly, sorry.
Yep, next Tuesday.
Liz, you're recording, correct?
I am.
So that means we're going to put this online. So if
Correct.
anybody wants to relive this night, I'm sure
hilarious.
you'll be seeing this video soon on the website.
So we'll also post the actual presentation itself without the dialogue. But we encourage this instead because it is a very, sometimes hard to understand conversation. There's a lot of elements to it, so.
Thanks for pointing that out. Share the word, get your friends here. Thank you.
Bring a friend.